In Exile and the Kingdom, Albert Camus turns away from manifestos, revolutions, and public trials, and returns to something quieter and more intimate. These short stories are not arguments, they are atmospheres. They explore what it feels like to live in a world that is beautiful, indifferent, and often painfully silent. If the stranger shows the absurd in confrontation with society, and the plague shows it in collective suffering, Exile and the Kingdom shows it in solitude. Camus believed that exile is the fundamental condition of modern life. Not exile in the political sense, but existential exile. The feeling of being separated from meaning, from others, and sometimes even from oneself. The characters in these stories are not criminals or revolutionaries. They are teachers, engineers, artists, and ordinary people who discover that something essential has slipped away. What makes these stories powerful is that nothing dramatic has to happen for exile to appear. A man can be surrounded by others and still feel alone. A life can be comfortable and still feel empty. Camus understood that modern alienation often hides behind routine. At the same time, Camus pairs exile with its opposite, the kingdom. The kingdom is not heaven, it is not salvation, it is a fleeting sense of belonging, a moment when the world feels open rather than hostile. These moments are rare, brief, and fragile, but they are real. This tension between exile and kingdom runs through every story in the collection. Human beings are cut off from ultimate meaning, but they are still capable of experiencing beauty, connection, and joy. These experiences do not solve the absurd, they exist alongside it. Camus wanted to show that absurdism is not a philosophy of despair. It is a philosophy that allows for happiness without illusion. One of the central themes of Exile and the Kingdom is silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of a world that does not answer. Characters speak, act, and suffer, but the universe remains mute. There is no sign that their struggles are noticed. This silence can be crushing. It can also be clarifying. Camus believed that many people spend their lives running from silence. They fill it with noise, ambition, or ideology. But silence, once accepted, can reveal something essential, that life does not need to explain itself in order to be lived. The stories in this collection often revolve around moments of rupture. A routine breaks, a belief collapses, a relationship reveals its emptiness. These moments force the characters to confront the gap between their expectations and reality. This gap is the absurd. In The Adulterous Woman, a woman traveling through the desert experiences a sudden awakening. Her life has been orderly, obedient, and emotionally barren. Standing alone at night, surrounded by vast silence and stars, she feels something she has never allowed herself to feel, longing, not for escape, but for intensity, for presence, for life. This moment does not change her circumstances. She will return to her marriage. Nothing external will improve. And yet, something has happened. She has glimpsed the kingdom. Camus believed that such moments matter precisely because they do not last. They are not solutions. They are revelations. Exile and kingdom are not destinations. They are states of awareness. Most of life is lived in exile, disconnected, routine-bound, numbed by habit. But occasionally, something breaks through: beauty, love, clarity. These moments remind us that even in a meaningless world, life can still be felt. Another recurring theme in the collection is pride. Many characters are isolated not because the world rejects them, but because they reject the world. They cling to their identities, their superiority, their sense of control. When that control collapses, exile becomes unbearable. Camus was deeply suspicious of pride. He believed it was one of the main barriers to human connection. Pride demands that the world confirm your importance. When it does not, resentment grows. In The Renegade, a missionary's fanaticism turns into cruelty. His desire for absolute truth isolates him from humanity. He seeks a kingdom beyond the world and ends in madness. Camus shows how the refusal to accept the world as it is leads not to transcendence, but to violence and despair. Against this, Camus places humility, not as submission, but as acceptance. To accept the limits of existence is not to give up. It is to stop demanding that the world be other than it is. This acceptance allows beauty to appear. Camus believed that beauty was not a consolation prize, it was a response to exile. The sea, the sun, the desert, these are not symbols of meaning. They are reminders of presence. They do not explain life. They intensify it. This is why Camus often wrote about landscapes. Nature in his work is indifferent but generous. It offers no answers, but it offers sensation, light, heat, wind. These experiences anchor human beings in the present moment. In Exile and the Kingdom, Camus shows characters who either open themselves to this presence or close themselves off from it. Those who cling to certainty, pride, or illusion suffer the most. Those who accept ambiguity sometimes glimpse peace. This is not moral judgment, it is observation. Camus is not telling us how to live. He is showing us what happens when people encounter the absurd without armor. The stories in this collection are quiet, but they are relentless. They strip away distractions. They force attention onto the small movements of the soul: loneliness, desire, shame, hope, beauty. Through these fragments, Camus offers a vision of absurd life that is not heroic, not revolutionary, but deeply human. Life is exile, but exile is not everything. Sometimes, briefly, the kingdom appears. As the stories of exile and the kingdom unfold, Camus deepens his exploration of what it means to live without the comfort of meaning. The characters he presents are not dramatic rebels or philosophical thinkers. They are ordinary people who find themselves exposed to something unsettling. The realization that their lives, as they have been living them, no longer feel real. This is one of Camus' most important insights. Alienation does not come only from suffering. It also comes from routine. A life can be orderly, safe, and even pleasant, yet still feel hollow. Exile can be invisible. In The Artist at Work, Camus tells the story of a painter who retreats from the world to create something pure. He believes that by isolating himself, he will produce a great masterpiece. But the more he withdraws, the more paralyzed he becomes. His art dries up. His solitude turns into emptiness. Camus is showing us something subtle here. Isolation, when it is driven by pride or fear, does not lead to truth. It leads to sterility. The artist wants to escape the noise of the world, but in doing so, he also escapes the very life that gives art its substance. This is a recurring pattern in the collection. Characters who attempt to create a kingdom of their own making end up deeper in exile. They want control. They want purity. They want to escape ambiguity, but the world refuses to cooperate. Camus believed that one of the great tragedies of modern life is the desire for certainty. People want their identities to be fixed, their values to be clear, and their place in the world to be secure. But the absurd world does not provide this. It offers only shifting ground. Those who accept this instability can sometimes find peace. Those who resist it suffer. In The Growing Stone, a French engineer living in Brazil becomes involved in a local religious ritual. He does not understand it, he does not believe in it, but he participates in it out of a sense of human connection. This act, simple and strange, becomes a moment of communion, not with God, but with other people. Camus is showing us that meaning does not come from belief, it comes from shared experience. The ritual does not become true, but the connection it creates becomes real. This is one of the deepest messages of Exile and the Kingdom. In a world without metaphysical meaning, human bonds still matter. They do not redeem existence, they make it bearable. The title of the collection itself captures this tension. Exile and kingdom are not separate places, they coexist. A person can feel both in the same moment. You can feel alone while standing beside someone you love. You can feel at home while knowing that nothing lasts. Camus did not see this as a contradiction, he saw it as the truth of being alive. The stories in this collection do not resolve exile, they illuminate it. They show how people respond when their illusions fall away. Some grow bitter, some grow cruel, some grow numb, but a few discover a strange kind of freedom. This freedom does not come from escaping the absurd, it comes from accepting it. Camus believed that the greatest danger was not meaninglessness, but the refusal to face it. When people cling to false meanings, they become trapped by them. When they let go, they can begin to live. This does not lead to happiness in the conventional sense. It leads to intensity, to presence, to the ability to feel the world directly. Camus' characters often experience this through nature, the sea, the desert, the sun. These are not symbols, they are realities that exist without asking anything in return. In their presence, the characters feel small, but also strangely free. The world does not care about them, and because of that, they do not have to perform for it. This is the paradox of Camus' vision. The universe's indifference, once accepted, becomes a source of relief. There is no audience, no final judgment, no ultimate story. There is only this moment. In Exile and the Kingdom, Camus invites us to linger in that moment, to feel its loneliness and also its beauty. As Camus moves deeper into the emotional landscape of Exile and the Kingdom, the stories become more intimate and more painful. Exile is no longer only about loneliness, it becomes about failure, the failure to love, to understand, to remain open to the world. In The Silent Men, Camus tells the story of workers who have gone on strike and then returned to their jobs. Their protest has failed, their wages have not improved, their dignity feels wounded. When their employer loses a child, they are unable to express sympathy. They remain silent. This silence is not cruelty, it is shame. Camus shows how exile can take the form of emotional paralysis. When people feel powerless, they withdraw. They do not know how to speak. Their solidarity collapses into awkwardness. They want to care, but they cannot find the words. This is one of Camus' most compassionate insights. He does not portray these men as villains. He portrays them as human beings trapped by their own wounded pride. Exile in Camus' world is often self-created. People close themselves off because they are afraid of being hurt again. They protect themselves with silence, bitterness, or indifference. But this protection becomes a prison. The kingdom, when it appears, is usually accidental. A gesture, a shared look, a moment of recognition. It is never planned. In The Guest, a schoolteacher is asked to deliver an Arab prisoner to the authorities. He is torn between obedience and conscience. He does not want to betray the man. He does not want to betray his duty. In the end, he gives the prisoner a choice. The result is not peace, it is confusion. Whatever the teacher does, someone will judge him. Whatever the prisoner chooses, someone will suffer. Camus is showing us the moral complexity of an absurd world. There are no clean solutions. There is only the attempt to act without cruelty. The teacher's isolation at the end of the story is profound. He has tried to do what felt right, and yet he is still alone. Exile remains. Camus believed that this was the price of lucidity. To see the world clearly is to lose the comfort of simple answers. But this lucidity also makes the rare moments of connection more precious. When people do reach across their isolation, even briefly, something fragile and beautiful happens. Camus does not romanticize these moments. They do not last, but they are enough to justify continuing. This is the quiet heart of Exile and the Kingdom. Life does not become meaningful, but it becomes livable. The stories do not promise happiness. They offer something more subtle, the possibility of being present without illusion. In the final movement of Exile and the Kingdom, Camus brings his meditation on solitude, beauty, and absurdity to its quiet conclusion. The stories do not resolve the tension between exile and the kingdom. They leave it intact. That is the point. Camus believed that human beings live suspended between longing and reality. We want to belong. We want to be understood. We want our lives to make sense. But the world does not answer these desires. It offers only moments, moments of connection, of clarity, of beauty, that appear and disappear without explanation. These moments do not save us, but they sustain us. The characters in these stories do not overcome their exile. They learn to live with it. Some fail, some withdraw, some harden. But a few discover something fragile and precious, the ability to feel the world without demanding that it justify itself. This is what Camus meant by the kingdom. It is not a place. It is not a future. It is a state of awareness. It is the experience of being fully present in a world that offers no guarantees. In this sense, Exile and the Kingdom completes Camus' philosophical journey. The Stranger showed what happens when a man lives without illusion in a hostile society. The Plague showed what happens when people face suffering together without hope. The Rebel showed the danger of turning revolt into ideology. And here, Camus turns inward. He asks, what does it feel like to live this way? The answer is not simple. It is lonely, it is painful, it is beautiful. Camus does not promise happiness. He promises lucidity. He believes that to see the world clearly is already a kind of freedom. You may still suffer, you may still be alone, but you are not deceived. This is why Camus wrote about the sea, the desert, the sun, and the night sky. These are not symbols of meaning. They are reminders of presence. They do not care about us, and yet they allow us to feel alive. In a universe that is silent, sensation becomes a form of truth. Camus believed that this was enough to justify living. The stories in Exile and the Kingdom do not offer solutions. They offer glimpses. They show how, even in exile, the kingdom sometimes appears, in a look, in a gesture, in the warmth of the sun, in the acceptance of what is. This is the quiet wisdom of Camus' later work. After all the arguments, all the rebellions, all the refusals, he arrives at something simple. To live is to be here now without appeal, and that, in a world without meaning, is a form of grace.